That's not what I want to see.
I want to talk about secret space technology or secret aerospace technology. Now, I happen to have on 3 different occasions, no, I guess that's 4 different occasions, see technology unknown to the public on 2 different types of aircraft. One was the B-2 bomber, and the other was Avengers 2. Now, the B-2 bomber, I was at an air show at the now closed Richard Dubars Air Force Base, and I was suffering from heat exhaustion because of a car wreck, which I don't want to really get into. Back when I was a teenager, I can't regulate my body temperature like a normal person, and I'm very susceptible to getting frostbite or heat exhaustion because I can't feel the hot and cold for long periods of time. Anyway, I was suffering from heat exhaustion. It was right before the B-2 was going to do a flyover. And so I said, well, I want to go. And our cars are parked down near the end of the runway where the B-2 begins its flight. So I thought, well, the next thing's the B-2 bomber. It would be a perfect time to leave. Nobody's going to leave during the B-2 bomber. I'd seen it at other air shows. I go down to get in my car. The B-2 comes over a hill. It's maybe just a few hundred feet. It's flying. It's a few hundred feet away, and it looks like it's going to crash into the parking lot. And the engines roar. I think I brace for death. I think the B-2 is going to crash and I'm going to die, and it disappears from view. There's almost like a mirage effect. I don't hear anything, and I've thought, I've lost my mind. B-2 bombers don't disappear to the naked eye. I then see some kind of shape in the sky, it's like a cheesy effect from a sci-fi movie like Predator or Star Trek, and I can see kind of light bending around some object, like there's this lens in the sky for back a turn, and I see it moving up, and then I begin to hear the sound of the B-2 again, and it just pops instantly back into view, goes down the runway. 2 more times I go to air shows, and I see it from the perspective of it coming down the runway, and the announcer, and I never really noticed it before the other times. I think I've seen the B-2 at air shows about 5 times. So the last 2 times, I see it pop into view, and I go, I'm seeing it go from invisible to visible in the light spectrum. And I point that out to people, and they say, I don't know what you're talking about. The announcer says it's so stealthy and so fast. It goes like 600 miles an hour. I'm old enough to remember air shows where they did supersonic flight at the air shows, and you could hear the sonic boom. Of course, they don't do that anymore. So I knew you could see, when you see a supersonic flight and you see a plane coming, you can still see the plane coming. So the B-2 doesn't suit supersonic flight. So then I began thinking, if you can bend light around an airframe that large, can that be used as some kind of force field to protect astronauts? Later, in a switchgrass field between, I live in B-2 flyover country. I live very close to where the B-2 bombers are based. In a switchgrass field between Holden, Missouri and Centerview, Missouri, where some friends live, twice I've seen the B-2 bomber appear to skip like a stone off the ground, like there's some kind of invisible force field around it. So I'm wondering, can these technologies apply to protect astronauts in space? The other one was the Avenger 2, which was a canceled Navy program, an interceptor for that would be based off an aircraft carrier, which was a triangular shaped stealthy craft, and I saw it fly over and back back in the 90s, and I woke up my oldest son. It was flying so slow that it should have stalled out, and it was making a hum like an electric transformer. So I took that as some different kind of technology, flight gravity shielding, if you will. If you won't, I don't know what it was. And gravity shield is where you shield the effects of gravity. A lot of people use the sci-fi slang term anti-gravity, which doesn't really mean anything. And so I've seen that technology. Now, the technology I talked about on Epic Future Space was something I've been reading about since about 8 years old, and got everything I could get my hands on it, and tried to read between the lines even when I was a kid. My dad worked for the Bendix Corporation, now Honeywell, and he worked for nuclear, probably mispronouncing it, I do a George Bush on that almost every time, the nuclear industrial complex. And he used to get all these flyers, and I would read about, isotope pellets, and I was always fascinated by pulse detonation, atomic pulse detonation, and I proposed that because I think that's a possibility. I don't know if it's true or not. And so, of course, Quantum G, which I realize his name's Trent Waddington, his real name's Trent. I looked up his profile last night, and he seems like a super intelligent guy, far more intelligent than I on an academic level. I think I could compete with him on imagination one-on-one, and maybe even surpass him. But he is a very intelligent person, but he seems very mean-spirited. And so I decided to, play with him a while here recently, and I did I Love Quantum G as a joke, and just degraded myself in the silliest way to kind of call him out, see if he would put out his real name. I did that, and I thought he would say never, but he said no, so wrong in that. But I'm fascinated, if you present something that doesn't fit in people's safe little narrow-minded world of what reality is, what our level of technology is, and secret military technology, I, as somebody who's seen it, swear it is like magic. It is unreal. And I can see why people mistake it as creatures from another world. It is the technology advancement of the U.S. military is just mind-boggling. But I just look at him spewing hate speech on the internet. He could say the same thing he says without being so mean-spirited. And as somebody who was in a car wreck and lost 90% of their intellect in a second, calling somebody idiot is something you really don't want to do, because any moment in your life you might become that idiot. And you may well be right, I may be an idiot, but I know what I saw, I know the technology's out there, and I believe that technology could be applied to protect astronauts from radiation. And I know NASA went to the Air Force 3 times asking for technology to protect its astronauts and was denied. So I don't believe military secrets. If you're using this technology at air shows, it's not much of a military secret. So I think I asked the U.S. military to stop being the military industrial complex and become the space exploration industrial complex. Thanks.